What's good, y'all? What's good, Real Talk Squad? This is Miles. You're listening to Real Talk with Miles Johnson, where you know I always keep it real. This episode, Hoops episode, NBA episode, I got a special guest, my guy Joe Morgan, the host of the Pick a Side podcast. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I've been on a couple podcasts and nobody can ever seem to get my name right.
You gotta tell me what's the correct way, bro? What's the correct way?
So it's Joel.
Joel.
Yeah.
You know,
and then last name is Moran.
Moran.
Yeah.
All right, I got it now. Joel Moran, the host of the Pick a Side podcast. Welcome, man. Welcome.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Like you said before we started, it's been long overdue. I see you doing your thing on TikTok, on Instagram, and I'm glad to be on the show today.
For sure. Let's get right into it, man. Waste no time now. Blockbuster news happened yesterday. Katie, when I first saw it, I checked my phone. I thought it was a meme. I thought it was fake. But he really does want out of Brooklyn. So what were your initial thoughts that came to your mind when you heard the news that KD wants out of Brooklyn?
I was shocked. I mean, I thought that once Kyrie opted in to his player option, it was a sign that KD and Kyrie are running it back. They're going to give it one more year. There have been a lot of different reports that maybe KD asked out because the Nets organization is unwilling to give Kyrie an extension, which is reasonable given how unreliable he's been for the Nets. But I was shocked. I think now you can say definitively that the Nets, this Kyrie KD experiment, along with James Harden, is arguably the biggest flop in NBA history. There's no other way to put it. This is one of the biggest flops ever. And Kevin Durant is at the center of it. I think when he chose to go to Golden State, his legacy was already shot because he chose to join a stacked team. And now with this happening, with this debacle, with basically quitting on the Nets, it's not even giving them a year of a 4-year extension that you basically co-signed. You said you were going to be with the Nets for 4 more years. I think it looks horrible on Kevin Durant. And that's really all there is to say about it. It looks horrible for KD and the Nets. Good thing that they have him because they have him to trade because they're going to get a lot back from every team wants Kevin Durant right now, basically.
It's 15, 16 teams came out. They were like, want KD, and I would too. I mean, I'm a Sixers fan. I would, if to trade Maxey, I would do the same thing, go get KD. But I'm with you, man. When he left Golden State, I thought this was him, building his own foundation, building his own culture, doing what Bron did, going somewhere else, and establishing your own thing and win the championship. Now he wants to leave the thing about it, just last season, they were really a couple inches away from beating the champs. And yes, this year it was a COVID year, so Kyrie, he was in and out, but that's been resolved now. So now you got a team of you, Kyrie, Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Joe Harris. You got a pretty good team, and if you play like the best player in the world, you have a really good shot to win a championship. So when he's so quick to leave this situation, it has me thinking, why would you leave Golden State in the first place? It's like you might as well have stayed in Golden State from the jump if you were gonna leave when it gets tough in Brooklyn. It doesn't really make too much sense to me. If he stayed in Golden State, he would have had at least probably 2 or 3 more rings by now. Even that year when Klay was out for the whole entire year, it was still you and Curry who's playing at MVP type level. So end of the day, I don't know what KD is really doing here, but it's interesting to see what the Nets will do. You think, I'll ask you, do you think that they'll be pressured to trade him now, or they'll just sit back and, wait, it could come into, next season? What do you think the timetable is for the Nets in terms of when they trade KD and honestly Kyrie too, because they're kind of like a package deal?
Yeah, I think Kevin Durant definitely is going to get traded soon, just because there are so many offers and so many teams that are calling about him. And they are very good offers. The Nets have already said that they're going to trade Kevin Durant to the team that gives them the best package. So KD's not picking his team. He doesn't have a no trade clause, so he can't hold out on where he wants to go. But you look at some of these teams like the Pelicans. they can offer Brandon Ingram, young players, multiple picks, and now the Pelicans have KD, CJ, Zion, which sounds like a nightmare in the West. The Suns, Aiden, Cam Johnson, Mikal, some picks. You look at Minnesota, they're a team that I wouldn't sleep on. Maybe is there a D'Lo and Brooklyn reunion with first round picks and some young players packaged in there. The Sixers are a team to look out for. Tyrese Maxey, Thibault, Tobias. So there are just so many offers out there that teams are going to make the Brooklyn Nets that I feel like they're going to make the decision fairly soon. When it
Hmm.
comes to Kyrie Irving, I don't think there's any team that wants Kyrie right now. I think, and it's pretty odd because Kyrie is one of the more talented players that this league has ever seen.
Yeah.
And I've never seen it so that teams don't want a player this talented. But it just goes to show how much baggage Kyrie comes with. It's either that he's injured, it's either he's not taking a vaccine, which, okay, that's fine. That's his beliefs. But understand that does affect your team, and especially in the city that they played in Brooklyn, where they had the mandate. And also Kyrie's comments in the past of, um, the Nets don't need a coach.
Bro, once they said that, bro, I was like, I should have known then it was raps then
Yeah.
because he carried that mindset with them,
Yep.
with practice and with how they carried themselves, with games and all that. So that mindset just really is the reason why the Nets are, gone. And a guy like James Harden, feel like people got to owe him an apology now. People got to be like, all right,
Yep.
maybe you saw something there that we didn't all see back in February. And as a Sixers fan, I was happy. I was happy, but I was thinking to myself, why would he leave Katie and Kyrie? You can
Mm-hmm.
still, you can still do something. It's probably still better than Joel Embiid and a young Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris. Why'd you leave that? Now we know why it was probably so dysfunctional that he just had to bolt out. So what would be one team that is the favorite in your eyes to get or KD first, and then I guess Kyrie second?
Yeah, I do think the KD one happens first, and then Kyrie's like the domino that happens after, because everybody right now is just worrying about getting Kevin Durant. I think the Pelicans have the best offer. I look at the Suns, and yes, they
Mm,
have DeAndre Ayton, they have Mikal, they have Cam Johnson, but who's Mikal Bridges? Very good 3-and-D player. He's a great role player, but that's all he's going to be in the NBA. Cam Johnson, very good role player. DeAndre Ayton, he's a good center, but he's not a great center. I wouldn't call him a top 5 center, and I think that the motor issues are very real and concerning. So I think you look at the Pelicans, I mean, they have Brandon Ingram, who is an all-star. You can package him with Trey Murphy or a Herb Jones, maybe a Jose Alvarado, multiple first-round picks that they have from the Lakers still from the Anthony Davis trade. So
mm,
there's so many different avenues that the Pelicans can go with to acquire Kevin Durant. Now, I think they have the best package personally, but the three teams that I've often like talked about getting Kevin Durant are, of course, the Suns and Heat. But the Heat would have to offer Bam and like Tyler Hero and somebody else, and even Bam out of Bio's contract is tricky. And then you
yeah,
look at Portland. I think Portland also has an intriguing offer. Anthony Simons, a young budding star at the point guard position. And then you can get Shaden Sharp as well, who has arguably the highest potential in his draft. So
mm,
there are just so many offers for the Nets. It just depends on where they want to go. Do they want to try and compete? Because their roster isn't bad. If they trade Kevin Durant and they get two all-stars like they want back, like that's what they said they wanted back, you
yeah.
have Ben Simmons, you have two all-stars, you have spacing and Joe Harris and Seth Curry.
Mm-hmm.
The team isn't bad. I think the Nets can still make the playoffs
Yeah.
depending on the return they get with the Kevin Durant trade.
Yeah, I like that. And it's gonna be interesting to see how, like, what specific players they want in terms of how they build around Ben Simmons. I think it sounds crazy now, but there was a point where people were like, you know what, in Philly, you have a guy in Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons who might not be the best pairing together, but if you have Ben Simmons by himself, build around him, put some shooters around him, maybe they could have something. Maybe he could make something shake, kind of like a Giannis
Yeah.
type of thing. Now he doesn't have that dog that Giannis has,
Mm-mm.
which I don't think it'll work. But hey, maybe he snapped. Maybe Ben Simmons snaps out of it. He got Steph Curry there. They got Joe Harris. Maybe they end up getting a shooter like I guess I would say I like Phoenix's package, although I know that the Nets would be if they're gonna give KD what he wants, they're gonna want Devin Booker back. Not do it.
Yeah.
Will they hold firm on that? We'll see. But I think Phoenix is definitely a viable option. I like the Pelicans pick. I think the Celtics, if they want to give up Jalen Brown, that's the best
Mm-hmm.
prospect. Maybe aside from Devin Booker, that I think that they can get in terms of player right now. And so I would look at that. I would look at that specifically with Jalen Brown, and pair him up with a guy like Ben Simmons. Now you got a guy in Jalen Brown. He can close games. So in Ben Simmons, his problem was, I mean, he wouldn't even attempt to shoot. Never mind, close games. But you got a guy in Jalen Brown who can close games. He's proven that. He proved that in the finals was just overmatched there. But I think that Celtics, trade something they could be looking for, but it's all up to if Brad Stevens wants to pull that trigger or run it back. So there's a plethora of trades. I think the Heat one. See, they would give up so much. It's like, all right, it's only KD and Jimmy Butler, and then a bunch of, I guess I have to fill up the roster. So I like the Phoenix trade. I like the Celtics. The Lakers trade. There's no way in hell the Nets is doing
Mm-hmm.
that. Nah, there's no way in hell. I mean, AD proven to be injured. Russell Westbrook, nobody wanted him. I don't see that. So it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting. I want to segue though to other free agency moves. We saw that Jalen Brunson, your Knicks. Are those your Knicks or are you a Nets fan? Knicks or
I'm
Nets?
a Knicks fan. I'm a
Knicks fan
Knicks
all the
fan.
way. Knicks
Yeah.
fan all the way. All right, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, so how do you feel about the Knicks? Everybody's saying that they overpaid
Yeah.
for Jalen Brunson. They kind of moved mountains to clear up cap space for Jalen Brunson. I saw your TikTok. There's probably 15 point guards. We could probably name them.
Yeah.
That's better than Jalen Brunson right
Yeah.
now. So, what are your thoughts on the Knicks really going all in? The ties between Brunson and the GM. His dad's a coach on the team. So, what's your thoughts on them pulling the trigger and grabbing Jalen Brunson?
I love Jalen Brunson, and I love that we got him. The reason why I went and got my box brace today was to honor Jalen Brunson signing with the Knicks. That's why I got him.
Ah,
I'm just kidding on that, but I think the Jalen Brunson slander is unwarranted, and people that aren't familiar with how good he is, they're the ones that are slandering this move by the Knicks. Because just to talk about some NBA players that have talked about Jalen Brunson since this contract happened, because NBA Twitter's calling it an overpay. Mikal Bridges tweeted, "You guys really don't know how good JB it really is." And he wasn't talking about Jalen Brown. He's talking about Jalen Brunson. Even though Jalen Brown is better, I understand that, but he was talking about Jalen Brunson. Desmond Bain co-signed that and was like, "Yeah, he's a dog." And a TikTok clip just popped up on my feed earlier, from the Deuce and Mo show. Shout out to them. Davion Mitchell, the guy that they call Off Night because he's so great defensively, saying Jalen Brunson is one of the toughest guys that he's had to guard.
mm,
So Jalen Brunson, it's a 4-year, $106 million deal. He's getting paid $26 million annually. He's going to be the 13th to 14th highest paid point guard in the league, top 15 highest paid point guard in the league. Is he a top 15 point guard? No, he's not. Does that mean that he's not a great player? It does not. It means that the point guard position and the guard position in the NBA currently is the most stacked in the NBA right now. I mean, the 20th best guard, the 20th best point guard is a borderline all-star. Like
yeah,
D'Angelo Russell's not a top 15 point guard.
nope.
He made an all-star game a couple years ago. So the point guard position is so stacked. It's like the receiver position in the NFL,
Mm,
where the 21st best receiver in the NFL is capable of 1,000 yards in a Pro Bowl level season.
yeah,
That's how the point guard position is in the NBA. What we know about Jalen Brunson is that he's 90th percentile at the basket. He's one of the better finishers in the NBA. Without Luka, In 17 games in the regular season, he averaged 20 points, 7.5 assists per game. In 3 games that Luka missed in the playoffs versus the Jazz, Jalen Brunson led the Mavericks to a 2-1 series lead and was averaging 31 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. So this guy is not a slouch. It's not like Luka made Brunson.
Mhm.
Brunson is actually better when Luka is not on the floor with him because their play styles clash. Brunson needs the ball in his hands, and now in New York, where you're going to have that type of role, he's going to be the lead guard. I think it's going to make Julius Randle's life a lot easier. It's going to make RJ's life a lot easier. I'm a Knicks fan. Last year, our point guards were Kemba Walker, who's washed, and Alec Burks, who's a shooting guard, small forward. He's not even a point guard. And then the year
Mhm.
before, when we were the fourth seed, Alfred Payton was our starting point guard, and he's not even getting minutes on the Suns right now. The Knicks finally have a good point guard, and we're getting better. The goal of the offseason is to get better. Does Jalen Brunson make us better? Yes. Does he make us playoff locks? No, he does not. Does he give
Mhm.
us a chance to be in the play-in and to make a playoff push? Absolutely. And it's the same thing with the Hawks and DeJounte Murray. Like, DeJounte Murray doesn't make the Hawks automatic top six seed. He doesn't make them an automatic top six seed, but he gives them a better chance. He makes them better.
I'll
Brunson
give you
makes us
that.
better. We still have 5 first-round picks in next year's draft. We have a really good, talented young core. RJ Barrett just re-signed Mitchell Robinson, Emmanuel Quickly, Quentin Grimes, Obi Toppin, Cam Reddish is still there, even though he's on the trade block. Like, the Knicks are trying to win now, but we also have assets that we should be hopeful for in the future. So I
Mhm.
love the Brunson move. And is it a slight overpay? Yeah. But, he's getting paid as like the 14th, 15th highest paid point guard. He's like the 18th, 19th best point guard. That's not a massive overpay.
Yeah, I see. I see what you're saying. I
It's
do
not
think
like
it's an
Russell
overpay.
Westbrook.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's not. Oh yeah. No. Yeah. No.
Like
It's
Russell
not nothing
Westbrook's getting
like
paid
that.
47 million a
47
year.
mil. 47 million. Think about that. No, I do think it's an overpay, but you think about 2 years from now, 25, 27 million dollar year contract will
Yeah,
probably look like a good contract. You talk about the
exactly.
way the NBA is going. So right now it's overpay. Thinking about even in the future, they see how they paying guys. I mean, Anthony
Yeah.
Simons, he got what 4 years, 100 million. So
Yep.
it's like, he's getting paid 25 million. He like just started this whole season. That's because they trade CJ McCollum. Dame has been out. And so, and is he a top 15 is he a top 15 point guard? I
No,
don't think so,
he's
right?
not.
So no, I know I definitely agree that it is an overpay, but you gotta see where the market is going right now for guards. They getting that bad. They're getting that bag. And I hope that the next CBA they don't like, with the way that Kyrie, Ben Simmons, KD, how these like different stars are wanting trades if they'll, you know, not have as many, guaranteed contracts, if they have more stipulations in your contract, I guess it'll be up to the owners and the players. But the way that the market is going now, if you're a point guard, top 15, heck, even top 20, there's gonna be teams running after you.
Hmm.
With the Sixers, Tyrese Maxey, he's gonna get paid in 3 or 2 years. He's
Yep.
gonna get paid. So it doesn't really matter if you talented point guard, you can go ahead and get that bag. So I hope. What I will say is, if they're paying them all this money and they're still in the playing, it's a fail. They got to at least make the playoffs. At least make the playoffs. If seven seed, that would be ideal. I could see that for the Knicks if everything goes right, be a seven seed. But if all this is just to be in the playing, you might as well just start from scratch, trade Julius Randle. I'm not too high on him. I'll be honest. I'm not too high on him, especially the way he was acting. Our way he was acting during this season. You would know a little bit more than me as a Knicks fan, as he was, talking about the booze and all that. So I'm not the biggest fan of him, but if you could add another piece to that Knicks roster, then I think they can really solidify themselves as a playoff team. But we gonna see. We gonna see. Next, man, I want to talk about Dejounte Murray. Honestly, I saw that he got traded to the Hawks. Go to school in Atlanta. I'll probably be at some Hawks games later this season. I wasn't too high on it because I don't see how Trey Young and DeJounte Murray work long term. If you think like the recent successful backcourts, uh, think of Chris Paul, James Harden. Both of them could shoot well. Chris Paul could shoot well. James Harden could shoot well. On the other side with Trey Young and DeJounte Murray is a hell of a defensive player, one of the best defensive guards in the league, probably top five, top three. But his shot, he shot 32% from three. So when I think about the way that they're gonna trade off in terms of who's dribbling the, both of them have had high usage rates. Who's gonna, carry the load offensively sometimes. I think when Trey Young has the ball, I don't see DeJounte Murray living up to his full potential as a player as he can be. I think he's the best as he can be when he has the ball in his hands. But I'd like to know your thoughts on the trade, how you think it's going to work. Again, I think that, yeah, you kind of alluded it a little bit earlier that best they can really be a sixth seed, like, really like that's fifth seed maybe, but I think their ceiling is like a sixth seed first round exit. But I'd like to know your thoughts on that trade and if you think that pairing of DeJounte Murray and Trey Young can work long term.
Well, for one, I think the Spurs getting 3 first round picks back for
Hell yeah.
DeJounte was huge. And they're obviously going to tank this year. They're going to try to get Victor Wembanyama, who most teams should honestly do.
Mm-hmm.
But DeJounte and Trey Young, I like it because defensively they can now, um, they can hide Trey Young more, and now he won't get picked on in the backcourt. I like
Yeah.
that they just traded Kevin Herter too, so now Justin Holiday, who comes in, is a better defender and spot up shooter.
The Kings got
That
fleeced.
yeah,
Oh my gosh.
that also works
Oh
as
my
well.
gosh.
But offensively, I think the concerns are warranted. Trey Young is a on-ball player. He has a insanely high usage rate. DeJounte isn't quite to that level, but he has still been his most productive in the NBA so far when he's had the ball in his hands. Um, but he's now the co-star. Last year DeJounte was the best player on the Spurs, rightfully so. There was nobody else that was really close to him.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at the year before that, DeMar DeRozan was there. And when DeMar DeRozan was the first option and DeJounte was the second, DeJounte was a 16-point per game scorer with like 7 rebounds and 7 assists. So I expect his numbers to dip. I think this does help Trey Young though, because now he gets to play off ball more. He gets to get less defensive attention on him, and defensively you can mask him. But the ceiling for the Hawks really isn't anything crazy. DeJounte Murray doesn't move the needle. If this was a clock, he moves it one, not like 12 to 6. It's not a big time move that makes the Hawks contenders. Can they get out the first round? Yeah, maybe depending on the matchup, but I don't view them as legitimate contenders or conference finals contenders either. Getting to the conference finals, this move was like just a whatever move. I think DeJounte Murray is a fine player, but ultimately his contract is up in 2 years. He's getting paid 17 million right now, which is a bargain for the type of player he is. But in 2 years, let's say he's an all-star, you're gonna have to pay him 35 to 40 million dollars a year. And
Yep.
DeJounte Murray, Trey Young, if that is your core, if that is your duo for years to come, I don't think that's a championship duo. And the Hawks core right now, when you look at their team, they have some young players. DeAndre Hunter's still there, but he's always hurt. But
Yep. My
even then,
guy.
DeAndre Hunter doesn't have star potential though.
Mm.
AJ Griffin is good. Does he have star potential? I don't think he has that type of ceiling. And then Clint Capella, like I really don't see the young talent on this team that the Hawks can count on to really turn into a star. And they're two solidified stars in Trey Young and DeJounte. Trey is a superstar, but DeJounte is a fringe all star.
Mm-hmm.
And that top two duo, I don't think it worries anybody.
No, I actually, I like the package they got from the Kings. I feel like the Kings got fleeced. And like they gave up Justin Holiday. People sleep on him. He's Drew Holiday's brother. He's pretty good though.
Yeah.
He's pretty good. Mo Harkless. And the first round pick though too. So they can use that first round pick to package that with like a John Collins, do a little something there. So, if they can trade John Collins for something or Clint Capella, if they can or DeAndre Hunter, if they can trade one of them for another wing that can shoot to space the floor out, especially
Yeah.
when Trey Young has the ball or when DeJounte Murray has the ball as well, have five out, four out, so I think that another trade, this probably is going to be the Hawks team that we see currently constructed coming into next season. I think they got another move up their sleeve. And speaking of moves up their sleeve, the Sixers, my Sixers, Daryl Morey, I feel like he's completely just changed life in Philly. When you talk about when he got there, you have a team with Al Horford, Josh Richardson, paired up with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. The paint was clogged up. He said, "You know what? I'm gonna flip Josh Richardson for Steph Curry. I'm gonna flip Al Horford for Danny Green, and then me and James Harden were real tight. I'm gonna get James Harden for Ben Simmons and Steph Curry and some picks, and end up basically. I'm joking about it, talking about they're the Philadelphia Rockets now. They didn't got PJ Tucker back. They didn't got Daniel House back. It's kind of like the 2018 Rockets all over again. And so, what do you think about the Sixers moves? From the start of free agency, with James Harden opting out as well. He said, you know what, basically I'll take a 15 to $10 million pay cut to try and win this championship in this championship window he has with Joel Embiid. How do you think the Sixers stack up with the teams in the East, and do you have them as a true title contender with the moves that they made?
I think they're a top three team in the East. Boston getting Brogdon and Gallinari, that was huge. And for me, they're the favorites in the East because of those moves.
The
Um,
Celtics, so favorites in
yeah,
the East.
yeah.
Ooh, I can't bet against Giannis, but I'll let you go on. I'll let you go on.
Milwaukee, they're always going to be there. And then Philly's three. I
Yeah,
think Embiid, MVP candidate. I do think James Harden goes back to James Harden this upcoming year. Now that he has an offseason to fully train and not have to recover from a hamstring injury, I think he's going to be better. And this team, the roster, it has enough depth and star power to the point that Harden can rest during the season and he doesn't have to take on a huge load. And there's been a positive correlation in Harden resting and then coming back and playing at an all NBA level. So I think that'll be huge. PJ Tucker was a great signing. Daniel House was a great signing. I think DeAnthony Melton getting him via trade was a
hmm
great trade because he's such a good defensive point guard. This roster construction is perfect for not only Harden's play style, but Embiid. You now have floor spacers. You now have good defenders at the wing position, which is needed, especially in the East when you have to go up against Jimmy Butler, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown,
yep,
Giannis, Middleton. So I don't think Daryl Morey's done. I think there's still much more moves to be made. Maybe trading Tobias. Maybe that's like the
yes,
next move that's going to happen.
yeah,
But I love the way Philly is trending. And I think if Harden can get back to his former self, they have a realistic chance at winning a championship.
yeah. And I think they have this, a 2 year window. You got
Mm-hmm.
Embiid, who's 28, but he is injury prone. You got a guy in James Harden. He's around 32, 33 years old. He has a couple years left until he really, really declines too. So they got this 2 year window. I think that they'll definitely, it's up to them to maximize it. But
Yep.
I'm glad that I'm glad that James Harden has the mindset of, I'm not gonna try to collect every penny from the Sixers. I already declined a contract extension from the Rockets to go to the Nets, and I left KD and Kyrie. I had the mindset now I'm trying to win a championship, and I think if he wins a championship with the Sixers, we forget about all the failures in Houston, all the failures, that he's had, the failure this postseason. I feel like he missed, he lost a step a little bit, but he choked. He flat out choked. 11 points in a game six, like that's just flat out unexcusable. So, I think he's motivated. He has a lot to prove. His legacy in the next 2 years is kind of really on the line right now. He can change that though. But I love the moves that they're doing. I think Daryl Morey's a top three GM in this league with the moves that he's made to really just like change this, roster around. I feel like Embiid should be thankful to Daryl Morey because the way that they were headed before he got there, they were about to like waste Joel Embiid's prime, and now they really
Yeah,
got a team around him that can really do some. And speaking of James Harden resting during the season, you got a guy in Tyrese Maxey who I think will take that next leap to become a superstar. I think the Sixers will, or not a superstar next year, but an all star next year. And I think that especially during the regular season, you'll see Tyrese Maxey take an extra load. He's around 21 years old. He can really run with these guys during the regular season. Then come the playoffs, you'll see James Harden. He'll have to. That's the only way that they can win a championship is if he steps up and
yeah,
rises to the occasion. And I believe he'll do that. Same with Embiid. Embiid has gotten like a little tired. Like I noticed that he like runs out of gas at the end of the seasons. And honestly, sometimes in the regular season too, in terms of he'll be top notch the first three quarters, then come the fourth quarter, he ends up, getting injured or he ends up being tired and all this. So to be able to pace themselves throughout the season as well is key to the Sixers team, becoming champions. I want to talk about also Bradley Beal. So I made an episode talking about how I really don't blame Bradley Beal at all. He's a guy that I don't even think that he's a top 15 player in this league. Fringe top 15 player in this league, definitely not top 10. But when we talk about guys that you expect to win a championship, you don't. The guy like Bradley Beal doesn't pop up in my head. I think of guys like Giannis. I think of guys like Steph Curry. I think of guys like Kawhi, KD, Jokic, Embiid, those guys. I don't really think of Bradley Beal, even Dame. I don't think of guys like Bradley Beal that they have to win a championship. So I think when the Washington Wizards are gonna give him that max extension, why not take it? And you see the way that the NBA is trending now, you can get a deal, guaranteed contract, and end up getting a trade. That's exactly what KD has done. That's what Anthony Davis has done. That's what James Harden has done. That's what Kyrie has done in the past. That's what a lot of players. That's what Kawhi. I mean, like a lot of these guys have done this. So why not get your guarantee money now? And then in 2 years, if the Wizards, are tired of what's going on, Westbrook as well. I mean, he should not be making $47 million, but the reason why he's making that money is because OKC, they gave him that contract extension. So do you think that it was smart for Bradley Beal, basketball wise, to stay in Washington? Would you have liked him to go elsewhere? What's your thoughts on the Bradley Beal situation?
Bradley Beal's gonna do what Bradley Beal does. He's gonna get paid and lose. That's what he always does. This isn't surprising. This is why whenever Bradley Beal, like there was topics that came up about, where should he go? I thought it was pointless because he's not going to go anywhere. He's going to stay in Washington. This He's been saying it the entire time. I will
Yep.
say this current Washington team is better than those in years past. They got Kristaps Porzingis, who played well in Washington. You still have good wing depth in Rui Hachimura, Denny Advia, Daniel Gafford at center. They just brought in Monte Morris, who's a solid, reliable point guard. Will Barton is coming via trade as well in that deal. And Bradley Beal's there. There is no reason why the Wizards shouldn't make the playoffs if Bradley Beal is so good, right? Because actually, like my first viral video ever on TikTok was me saying Bradley Beal wasn't a top 15 player. And this was his first season averaging 30 points per game. Because I basically said, this is rare. This is rare that somebody who's leading the NBA in scoring is not a top player in the league. He's not a top 15 player in the league.
Yeah.
And people gave me a lot of backlash for that. And now it's kind of universally known that Bradley Beal is not top 15. He is
Yeah.
about to be the highest paid player in the NBA. He has one playoff win. I think in like the last 5 years. So Bradley Beal is going to do what Bradley Beal does. He's going to get paid and he's going to lose. So
Yep.
we have to stop throwing out these memes of, oh, free Bradley Beal if the Wizards start to suck,
No,
because he chose this
that's
for
what he
himself.
wanted.
He's had opportunities to leave before. He hasn't. It's clear he loves Washington. I don't know why. Washington doesn't seem like the city you should really want to be in or love that much. It's not like New York or LA or California or Texas or whatever. But yeah, Bradley Beal, I'm not surprised, and he's just going to continue to lose. I
Yeah.
wish, given his talent, he would have went to a team that can compete. But this is what he's chosen for himself.
Yeah, and I think honestly, from Bradley Bill, I'm also thinking, why would I take less money to go
Yeah.
to a team when it's not guaranteed I'm gonna win a championship? So certain players, you got that mindset. I want to win championships. Other players, they're just trying to get paid. NBA is a job. I'm gonna put
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna work. I'm a he worked for this contract. People can't say he didn't deserve it, right? So he deserved it. Well, it could be an argument to say if he really deserved it. Actually, when you talk about one playoff win and all that, I wouldn't. If I'm the Wizards, I'd probably restart. But I mean, you got Kristaps Porzingis. You made some trades. You got Monte Morris. You got Bertans. So you got some shooters around there. So I see them being eighth seed, ninth seed around there, and if Kristaps ends up, stepping up, then we have a different story there. But yeah, I don't really see too much from them. But NBA is a business. Go get your bread. Now we're gonna talk about the Clippers and then get into our top five players, and then our dark horses in the NBA next season. I know there's still moves to be made, but first, with the Clippers, do you think that they are the favorites out west now that John Wall has joined them?
I think they should be. They should be. I was gonna have the Warriors at one, but given they just lost Otto Porter,
Mm,
Kayvon Looney's a free agent still. He hasn't signed yet. I'm not sure where he's gonna go. You also lost Gary Payne the second for Toscano Anderson, who I know didn't play in the playoffs, but was pretty good in his minutes that he played in the regular season. The thing with the Warriors is that the Warriors are going to have to rely on like so much young players: Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga, James Wiseman, Jordan Poole, hopefully getting significantly better from last season. So they're going to have to rely on a bunch of young players. Where I feel like the Clippers have established talent and they have two elite players: Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. Then the complementary pieces: Zubac, Nick Batum, Robert Covington, Marcus Morris, Reggie Jackson, John Wall, Luke Kennard. Like the Clippers, they have 12 legit players that are not only good, but they are veterans and they know how to win and they've been in these atmospheres. Um, those players on Golden State, did they win? Yes, but Kaminga wasn't playing in the playoffs. Wiseman hasn't played in a while. Moses Moody didn't play much in the playoffs, so that environment is still new to them, at least in-game experience. So that's where I feel like I give the Clippers an edge. At least talent-wise, they should win. I feel like we said this in a bubble year that they were the favorites in that year, and then they choked a 3-1 lead to the Nuggets.
mhm.
They should win the championship this year. I think the Clippers, they have the depth, they have the star power. There's really no reason for them not to make the finals this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that again, everything indicates with the roster, the moves that they made, the Clippers should be the favorites, or at least talent wise. But I just believe in Golden State. I believe
Yeah.
in their championship experience. I believe in their best player, Steph Curry, more than I believe in Kawhi Leonard, the Clippers' best player, to deliver. And I will say is, I don't know, if they don't make the conference finals, like it'll be like a disaster, like complete disaster. And honestly, this kind of is a make it or break it year. You got Kawhi,
Mhm.
Paul George coming of age. If they can't win, get to the finals this season, you're not making it. Like you're just simply not making, because the Nuggets are gonna be too good. The Grizzlies, John Moran is gonna get to that next level. It's too many teams in the West that are going to significantly improve, and this is really the season. And I'm interested in seeing the dynamic between Reggie Jackson and John Wall. I don't want to cause any dissension, but when you talk about Reggie Jackson, you know, with him and Russell Westbrook, there was some friction in OKC about really who's that top point guard. Obviously, it was Russell Westbrook. Now John Wall. Is he gonna be? Does he think that he should start as the point guard? Should will Reggie Jackson take that back seat? Will John Wall take that back seat? I don't know, and I don't know if they have that leader on their team to hash everything out the way that I feel like LeBron could handle that situation great. A guy like Steph Curry can handle that situation great. I think that, especially with you're seeing with the way that this how that whole situation played out in Brooklyn. So you can have a talented team, but if you don't have a leader that's gonna that establishes a culture for everyone to follow and get everybody in check, have everybody accountable for themselves, then you're only gonna go so far. So I still have the Warriors with the edge, but the Clippers are right there, and I
Yeah.
don't want to say Kawhi. Well, right now I don't think Kawhi's a leader, but he can change that. He can change that. If the Clippers end up being Golden State, I'll come here and I'll say, I was wrong. Kawhi's leader. He can lead a team, really to a championship for real, for real. So, it'll be interesting to see. Paul George, he kind of getting up there. He's had some injuries as well. You got to think about that too. So they got some pieces there. You definitely got what they got. Robert Covington. What's the guy that was from
Norman Powell.
Portland too? Yeah, Norman Powell too. Yeah, so they have some size as well. So again,
Yeah.
they have a stacked roster. And Luke Kennard, I believe Serge is on that team too. So they got some pieces. But I think having that leader piece is gonna really be the driving factor, whether or not they get over the hump or they'll just go back to the same old Clippers that they are. But I want to get into top five players in the league, top five current players. I want you'll go first, and then I'll go after you.
I go back and forth on the top five all the time because it's just such a exclusive list, and really the gap between these players isn't really that much anyway. Um, I think number one has to be Steph Curry. I before I've said it was Giannis, but Steph Curry is the best offensive engine in the league right now. There's not like is by far. If there's one guy I want to build my offense around, it's Steph Curry. He's a good defender. He's gotten significantly stronger at that. He's one of the more unique players ever in NBA history. He's coming off a championship in a year where everybody doubted Golden State. So I think Steph Curry to me is the best player in the NBA.
Mm,
Number two is Giannis. I think Giannis, his two-way prowess, two-time MVP, Finals MVP, NBA champion. He has to be number two, and if he's number one, I wouldn't get mad at it. Number three is a toss-up for me. It's between Luka and Jokic.
mm,
Jokic is a two-time MVP. I will give him that respect. So I have Jokic at three because of that. Then I have Luka at four, making the conference finals. I think he's going to be the face of the league in 2-3 seasons. He's going to be the best player, and it's going to
yeah.
be undisputedly he's going to be the best player. So Luka's at four, and number five. I mean, Kevin Durant, LeBron. Is it one of those guys?
Oh,
I'd lean LeBron. I'd
okay,
lean LeBron.
okay.
So LeBron's number five, and I know people are going to say, "Oh, how can Kevin Durant be outside the top five?" KD's not better than Steph. KD's not better than Giannis. I don't care that
Nah,
Giannis
Luca.
said KD is better than him. It doesn't matter.
No,
KD is not better
that
than
ship has
Giannis.
sailed. That ship has sailed.
Luka has accomplished more than Kevin Durant in the past 3 years. He's done more than him.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Jokic, two-time back-to-back MVP. He clears Kevin Durant right now. And then LeBron. I mean, he almost led the NBA in scoring this
Mm-hmm.
past year. He's better than Kevin Durant as well. I mean,
Yep.
so Kevin Durant is not a top five player.
Hey, I thought I was gonna be on an island because I had a pie with my friends yesterday. I'm like, Key's not top five. People are like, what? Key's not top five. I'm like, what have you done for me lately? What have you done for me lately? You got swept by the Celtics. Swept. Like,
Yeah.
you can call it overreaction, but at the end of the day, the guys on by the list have done more with less. aside from Bron, but I think Bron has the intangibles that Kevin Durant doesn't have, which I give him that edge. So at number five, again, it's Embiid. Embiid is dear to my heart, but I gotta give Jokic that respect. Two-time MVP. Number five, Jokic. I think that once you got Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr., the Nuggets. You talk about top three teams in the West. Nuggets are right there. They're top three. Talk about number four. I'll go with Bron. I think that his leadership is big, and he still averaged 30 points on good efficiency last season. I think that he only played 55 games out of 82. Obviously it's inexcusable to miss the play-in, but if he plays 20 more games, the Lakers would be in the play-in. But he made the worst decision ever by wanting to have Westbrook as his teammate, and he's regretting that probably now. But I still have Bron as the top five player. Number three, I have to go with Luca. As just like you, I think he's done the most with less in the playoffs. You think about his second best player. His second best player is the guy that everyone's saying is overpaid. Guy who
Yeah.
isn't an all-star, isn't top 15 point guard, maybe fringe top 20 point guard in this league. Didn't have Porzingis anymore. So he got Christian Wood now. So I think he has some help moving forward. But in terms of who has done less with more, he reminds me of a young Bron who's carrying these teams with little help by himself, and he takes a lot of the load too. But Luka is number three. Number two, Steph. Steph, the best offensive player in this game. But the one thing that I have my number two simply because of the defense. I don't think his defense is as elite. Again, people underrate his defense, but it's not as elite as his offense. At number one, I got
Mhm.
Giannis. Talk about a guy who the most dominant player in this game right now. I mean, the plays that he makes defensively are just like out of this world. And his motor, he has the motor of Russell Westbrook, but he's smarter and he's more
Yeah.
dominant. And he has that dog mentality. The fact that talk about the last finals, he was able to, you know, fight through all that, chatter about, fans count from 1 to 13 every time he went to the free throw line, airballing shots. He said, I don't care. I'm gonna, still go to the rack and put up a 50 piece in game 6. So I think that in the day, Giannis, if I'm starting a team right now, I'm picking Giannis simply because his dominance, his prowess on both ends of the floor. But I will mention Kawhi. I want to see what Kawhi does too. And again, KD right now he's out of the top five. Again, you can change that, but we're talking about right now. Those
Yeah.
five players
He's my
are
top five.
doing more, and they're are doing more in their situations than you are too. And I think if you're leaving the Nets, then it's if leaving the Nets, then you're kind of hinting that what I'm not really that guy because Luca would die to be in that situation right now. You gotta think, Jokic would die to be in that situation right now. Heck, even Bron. So I think he's got a little work to do to get back in that top five. And lastly, dark horses in the NBA. We still got some moves to be made. Is there a fringe AFC last year, or a team that might have been slept on last season that you think could end up surprising us? Last season that was the Grizzlies in the West. I think the Bulls were that surprise team last season in the East. So with the moves that have been made right now, and obviously moves will change. Is there like a dark horse team right now that you're got your eyes on?
In the Eastern Conference, I would say the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Mm,
Re-signing Ricky Rubio and bringing him back, I think is huge. Drafting Osei Abaji, I think is also huge. Darius Garland taking the next step. Evan Mobley. I feel like they're the team that's poised to make the playoffs, and they missed it last year. In the Western Conference, I mean, it's tough because the Western Conference is stacked. I think the Mavericks secure a top 3 seed this year.
mm,
Christian Wood is going to have a borderline all-star season for sure with Luca. Minnesota takes a leap. I think Minnesota is ready to take that next step. Anthony Edwards. You look at a guy like Jaden McDaniels, who I think is going to be in the running for MIP next year as well. And then the Pelicans, the Pelicans getting Zion back. Uh, People have been way too critical on Zion. When last time we seen Zion, he was historic. I mean, 27 points a game on historic efficiency. So for me, it's the Pelicans, Cavs, Wolves, and I'm buying stock in the Mavs as a serious contender, as a serious contender in the West.
Got you. I like that. I like that. With me, in terms of the West, dark horses. Obviously, I think that the Nuggets are going to be a serious contender, and could push a Clippers team to 7 games, could push a Warriors team to 7 games, and possibly make something shake. In the playoffs too. Jokic's playing at a supreme level. Got Michael Porter Jr. coming back. Got Jamal Murray coming back. Well, hopefully Michael Porter Jr. comes back. We gonna see, but definitely think that they are a serious threat. I think lower in the seating, talk about a team like Portland. They got Anthony Simons. They traded for Jeremy Grant. They re-signed Nurkic. Obviously, these guys have to be healthy. But if Damian Lillard performs next season like a top 10 player that I know he can be, there's no reason why this Blazers team can't be a 7 seed, can't be a 6 seed, can't end up moving up if everything goes right to being a 5th seed. So I think that they could be a team that you watch out for, especially if they make some more moves moving forward. And I like your pick as well with the Pelicans. People forget they made it to the 8th seed, pushed the Suns to 6 games without Zion. They got CJ
Yep.
McCollum, they got Brandon Ingram, they got Zion, they got Steven Nash, who's a pretty good, center, starting center in this league. They got some pieces right there. I like what they're doing on the East side. I like the Pistons. I like their addition of Jaden Ivey. They might be a year away, but I think they'll surprise people. I think that they'll get into that playing spot, be able to inch into that 8th seed and really make something shake, and have this be the breakout year for Cade Cunningham. Have him really step up and live up to expectations as that number 1 overall pick. He did some work last season, but I think that in terms of efficiency, in terms of turnovers, Kate Cunningham will take that leap. And also, I like what the I would say the Hawks as a team, but but they just traded for somebody. I like the Cavs pick too. But here's what I'll say. I'll go with the Wizards. I'll say that they can make a push for a 6th seed if everything goes right. If everything goes right, and I think Bradley Beal. Hopefully, he's motivated after getting that contract extension. Hopefully, Kristaps Porzingis is motivated after failing with the Mavericks, and hopefully they can make something shake there. But I think both teams, to the upper echelon, is pretty solidified in the East, in the West. But we are going to see Joel, Joel,
Moran.
Joel Moran. Appreciate
Yeah,
that. I mean, I appreciate you for being on the show, man. It was a pleasure. Got to talk some hoops, all that, and definitely want to have you back on. Later on in the season. We talked about NBA today, but definitely, I know you love your Jets. Got to talk about Zach Wilson, all that too. But again, I appreciate you
for
for coming
sure.
on.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you for having me. You got something great going on, man. Just keep pushing, and I appreciate you having me on the show once again.
For sure, for sure. With that being said, y'all, this is Real Talk with Miles Johnson, where we always keep it real. We out, y'all.